Hello, my name is Jeffrey, and my friend has asked me to do this little interview on recovery. So here I go.
How long have you been on your recovery journey?
My journey in recovery has been, for I guess the past 12 years. This year I'll be celebrating 8 years clean, but I've been working on that or pursuing that for the past 12 years. I started trying to get clean about 12 years ago. When I say try to get clean, I attempted and failed a few times, but going to treatment and working a program and doing those things has been part of my life for the past 12 years. So yeah.
How has having an addiction changed your life?
Wow. Well, it's changed it quite a bit. I mean, obviously I went through a long period of desperation and loss and lots of pain but more importantly, being an addict and being an addict in recovery, it's made me much more aware of life and challenges and being more grateful for the life I have in recovery and knowing that recovery is possible. So I'm kind of grateful to be an addict in recovery. Make that clear. Addiction is a family disease, and it affects everyone who's close to you and who loves you. So it's not just about me, and I become aware of that when I work with other addicts and I see the effect of the addiction and how big it is. But being an addict in recovery is a positive thing for me because I can help others today. So yeah.
How do people judge you as a person who used substances?
Honestly, most of the people that I'm surrounded with today they don't really do too much judging, in a sense that a lot of them have seen my past and they've seen where I'm at today. So I don't get too much negative judgment from being a person who has used substances. I don't really know too many people that haven't used substances. For some reason, I was one of those who, I was the lucky person in my friends and family who became an addict, and it took a long time for me to arrest that disease. But as far as being judged on a daily basis, or do I feel that judgment? I really don't, because my behavior today is as I work with other addicts, so I help other people. So yeah, I don't feel like I'm a person that's judged because I used to use substances. I don't experience that. Maybe at one point in my life when I was still using, but not now. I think it's a pretty positive thing because people see that you can make that change. So.
And how do you think society sees you?
Again, I mean, we do have a stigma. Addict, alcoholic definitely carries a stigma. It's almost like, we're like this contagious thing, like don't get too close, you might catch it kind of thing. But, there's a lot of people who suffer from substance abuse. It's very prevalent. It's not just like this thing that's kind of kept in the dark nowadays. There's a lot of treatment for it. There's a lot of people who deal with it. And so the stigma is kind of is kind of changing too, for the better. So I don't think that it's such a awful bad stigma to have these days. As long as you're trying to do something about it. You're not responsible for your addiction and for your alcoholism, but you are responsible for your recovery. And that's my opinion. So yeah.
How would you like to be seen by society, family, and friends?
Well, maybe a positive role model. I mean, recovery is possible. So I like to be seen by, obviously by my friends and family as someone who has gone through that darkness and that past and able to come out on the other side, and not only come out on the other side and have a meaningful life and be a productive member of society, but to help others travel through that too, so that of course would be a good way to be seen, I guess.
And what advice would you give to a younger version of yourself?
Drugs are bad. Okay. I mean, obviously, I would I would love to go back and see how my life would have turned out if I didn't make certain decisions, or if I didn't do certain things, and if I didn't meet certain people. But what's done is done. So there's, like most people who go through using an addiction and substances, and when you're younger, a lot of times it's fun for a long time. So there's a lot of those years where I don't regret, but um, there's also a lot of darkness that came later. But I would obviously like to tell my younger self to be aware of the dangers of when I was younger, I had no fear of certain substances and drinking and partying. I was just kind of fearless of it all. So looking back, I was just kind of this crazy fearless kid. So I guess I would tell myself to just be aware and just maybe choose a different path. So anyway.
What has been the hardest part of your recovery journey?
Well, I chose the path of recovery, and I also chose the path to try to carry that message and help others. So I guess one of the hardest things would be watching others not make it, and watching others struggle, and watching friends of mine that I grew up with, die from this disease, or even worse, like live this like long drawn out life of darkness and depression and misery, and yeah. So it's not everybody gets it, and it's hard to watch that happen, because as a friend or a family member, you're kind of when you realize that you're kind of helpless in that situation, it becomes difficult. But you should never give up, and you should never lose hope when you're trying to help somebody in recovery or through addiction. But yeah, I would say to watch friends of mine and family struggle with this disease and not being able to really to do much to help them.
How has the COVID-19 pandemic affected your sobriety?
Well, I'm not sure it has really. I mean, it's for many addicts in recovery, it's created this isolation thing that can be dangerous. I'm pretty fortunate to have a pretty loving home and a great life, and I have my wife and my family. So I did isolate, and I did have to quarantine, but it was with my family, so I was never alone through this. Meetings were canceled and shut down for many, so I had to sort of shift to like doing Zoom meetings and doing my H&I work with Zoom, which was good. But luckily, I don't think it's really affected my sobriety. It's definitely affected my life, but I don't think it was really a concern with me. I have seen it affect other people's sobriety. Again, what I mentioned about the isolation and not being any meetings to go to, and the fellowship was kind of really thinned out because of all this. So it was dangerous for a lot of addicts. A lot of people relapsed. A lot of people, succumb to depression, and it's been rough for a lot of people in recovery. But luckily, I had a great support group, and yeah, so that's what I would say for that.
And what advice would you give someone still fighting addiction?
Don't give up. If you fall down 7 times, get up 8 times. It takes what it takes. It's not easy. Recovery is not easy. Early recovery is really difficult. I always have these people that aren't addicts that are like, so is it just like every day you wake up and it's this struggle not to use drugs and alcohol? And no, honestly, it's not, because I have enough recovery to where, we're never cured as addicts and alcoholics, but it's not like I wake up every day and I'm like, I just want to use it. That compulsion and, that obsession has left me long ago. So, what was the question again? Which one were we on?
It was, what advice would you give someone still fighting addiction?
Yeah, never give up. You're worth it. You deserve to be happy. Most of us aren't born with the, we aren't born shooting heroin or drinking a jug of vodka. Like, that's not our aspirations when we were kids, whatever you go through in life has put you on a path, and decisions. Anyway, you're here, wherever you are, pick yourself up, start there, seek out recovery. There's plenty of other people that are going through the same thing, but don't give up on yourself. It's possible. It seems impossible, but it's totally possible. I've seen, alcoholics and heroin addicts and cocaine addicts that have been using for 25 years every day, and I've seen them get clean, and it's possible. So I would just say never give up.
What has been the most rewarding part of your recovery?
I would say helping others. Even though it's frustrating and it can bring a lot of, like I was saying before, sometimes you feel helpless when you're trying to help others, but it's really rewarding. I do a lot of work at the rehab in Santa Fe. I've been going to that inpatient rehab to help those guys at least once a week for the past 8 years almost. And I always said if I could just help one person in that room, it's worth it. So I would absolutely say helping others is the most rewarding thing. And just, to have basic things in life like peace of mind and integrity and self-esteem, all those are just gifts, of recovery, So I would say that's the most rewarding.
When do you find it the most difficult to stay sober?
Again, I don't really struggle with that per se. Like, it's not like I have to, like, every single day, like, worry about whether or not I'm going to stay sober. I've been in recovery long enough to where I'm pretty secure in that. But I can speak for others. Like, if I get disconnected, or if I go through some sort of trauma or grief or things like that, those are the things you got to watch out for. As an addict that's been clean for some time, I do this exercise where I actually think about, like, what would it take, because I have this great life now, and I have this great situation in my recovery. So I often do this exercise where I'm like, okay, well, what would it take for me to throw that all away and to start using again? And I can't really think of even like the worst scenarios, like, obviously loss of loved ones or grief or trauma. I don't think that those would be enough to make me want to live that way again. So, you want to stay away from loneliness, you want to stay away from becoming disconnected, get involved in a fellowship. And the COVID thing was a little scary when people were isolating, but I think that, having that strong foundation and that strong security network will keep you from slipping back into that behavior.
How do you deal with everyday stressors?
Positively. I used to deal with them by drinking and using drugs. So now what do? I have an awesome dog that I like to hang out with and take to the park, and I have a beautiful wife, obviously, that I spend some time with, and my family and my stepdaughter, and I stay active. I go to the gym. I'm an artist, so I create stuff constantly, and I'm able to do things that, when I was using and an active addiction, I was separated from, and I couldn't enjoy the things that I love the most because the addiction took all that stuff from me. It drove a wedge in between everything that I cared about doing, every person that I cared about, and just pushed it aside, because you can't do both. You come to realize that, especially when you're in early recovery, that it's one or the other. It's either the things and the people that you love, or it's the addiction, and you have to choose, because you can't have both. So,
why is it important for you to stay sober?
Again, I won't have the life I have today. I can't have both. I remember distinctly in early recovery, probably had a year or two clean when things were going good, and things do go good when you stop, throwing your life away, and life comes back fast and good things happen fast. Or I remember one day when I was sort of sitting back and looking at all that I had and all that I had accomplished by staying clean, and I was like, man, I have this great life and this beautiful wife and house and dog, and I have nice things. I have a truck and in a garage with tools in it and a motorcycle. And, all this stuff is not the important stuff. But the thing is that I sat back and I saw all these things, and I realized, I can either have this life with all these great things and these great experiences, or I can use it again. I can't have both. And it's like, that's why it's important for me to stay sober, because I've stayed clean long enough, sober, clean, whatever you want to say, to create this life that I don't want to lose, basically. So, yeah. And if I decide to pick up, or if I decide to use or drink or whatever it is, all that goes away. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take for it to go away. But it's going away. All those things that I just described will be gone. So.
Do you have a strong support system at home?
I do. Starting with my lovely wife, who's also in recovery. So I'm very fortunate for that. I have a lot of friends in recovery. I don't really surround myself with anyone who's not either in recovery or what I call a normal person, which by definition to us is someone who doesn't have a problem with substances. My family that my parents and my siblings, they weren't addicts or alcoholics. So they might, have some wine a few weeks out of the year, but so I can be around a normal person, and if I'm not around a normal person, I'm around someone who's in recovery, has some experience in recovery. So everyone that's around me pretty much is my support system. But my wife is a very strong support system. She's in recovery. She's also a counselor, and she works with people that struggle with depression and PTSD and substance abuse and all sorts of things like that. So I get some free counseling at home, which is great. But it extends past that. Like my parents, who don't even live in the state, are very supportive of, always have been, of my recovery. My siblings. It's crucial that takes place, in my opinion. Like when you're going through the recovery process, you need to involve your family. It's a family disease. It affects everyone, your kids, your parents, everyone around you. So if you don't bring them into your process, it could be detrimental to the recovery process. So it's huge when you first start to try to get clean. It's huge to tell everyone what you're going through, and tell them that you need the support, and that there's nothing to be like afraid of, and go to meetings with your husband or wife or your sisters or your parents. Like, just have them involved in your recovery, and I think your success and your attitude will be much better. So.
How did you come to the decision to get sober?
It was pretty easy. Well, like many addicts and alcoholics, my life was in shambles once again. Like I said, I used for a long time when I was younger, and it was fun, and then it turned to not to be fun, and then it turned to be necessary, and then it turned to be horrible, and then I was in survival mode, like life or death, full-blown addiction. So, I didn't have to have someone say, hey, I think you have a problem. I was well aware I had a problem, but sometimes that's not enough to want to do anything about it. So in this program, we talk about the gift of desperation. Well, I had the gift of desperation several times. So luckily I survived through all those times. And I was just done. It took me a long time to be done, and it took a lot of pain and loss, and pain and loss and pain and loss. And finally, I was lucky. I said I was lucky enough to survive all that, and to have isolated and pushed everyone away that cared about me. and I had to do all that to finally realize, like, this is no longer working. This is no longer an option. And I just chose life. You get to that point where you either choose life or you choose the other. And I didn't want to die, so I decided to give one more shot at this recovery thing, and it's been great. So,
how has getting sober changed your life?
oh, I mean, I could go on all night about that. It's just been great. Like they say, lost dreams awoken. Like it's just something as simple as being a productive member of society, like enjoying the simple things of life, being able to get up and go to work and not have that be an effort, being able to drive around town in a car that's paid for and is insured, and I have a valid license and I have a valid registration, and it's like simple things, life on life's terms. You don't like run in the other direction and hide when something comes at you. You deal with it, and like it's just great to be able to deal with life as it comes at you and not have to run and hide and use and sort of mask your feelings. And yeah, life's great when you're able to deal with it and not have to turn to substances or just run in the other direction. So it's amazing. Recovery for me is amazing. I wouldn't want to live any other way. And it's hard for me. I've been so separated from those years of active addiction. It's really hard to imagine putting myself back there. So, like I said earlier, I've stayed clean long enough to where that behavior and that lifestyle is so unfamiliar to me that I just couldn't imagine being back in that space. So, yeah, great stuff.
What does recovery mean to you?
What does recovery mean to me? Well, we talk about recovery as, when you recover things, it means you get things back. That's what recovery means. So to me, that's exactly what it means. You get your life back, and not only that, you get a new life, because most of us, we don't want that life back, because that wasn't a very good life. So we get to have a new life. And we get, we get to recover things, whether those things are, your job or your house or your truck, or your wife or your kids or your family, whatever it is that we lose along the way, we get to recover, right? And I talk to addicts all the time, and they're like, if I stay clean, will I get my kids back, and will I get my job? We can't really make those promises. And recovery is different for everyone, but it's a pretty simple deal. Like, no, we can't promise you that will happen, but we can promise you, if you continue using, that you'll get none of that stuff back. One exercise we do in recovery all the time is we ask addicts to make gratitude lists. I'll go to the recovery center and I'll have those guys write down 3 things that they're grateful for, even today, as they sit in a treatment center. And most of them, it's pretty straightforward. It's usually like their kids or their job or their family or their truck or whatever it is. They write those 3 things down, and then I tell them to hold those 3 things up, and I say, those things are what you're most grateful for, but if you leave here and you decide to use again, those are the first 3 things you're going to lose. In that order, usually. And most of them are like, whoa, because it's true. Recovery is about bringing yourself back to recover those things that we lose. So anyway, that's my definition.
Final question. What is your personal source of resilience?
Well, as far as resilience for recovery, it would be like my fellow addicts in this program. The way this thing works is really simple. It's like we get a bunch of other people surrounding us that are trying to do the same thing. So it's like one addict helping another. So I find resilience in that. You know, some people find it in meditation, some people find it in prayer, some people find it in God and church, and you know, and all that's great. You know, we have to find this connection, and you know, I find it with helping others through recovery. I find it with my fellow addicts in the fellowship. I find it, of course, with my family and my wife, and like all these things that I use as a support system. Those are the things that create that resilience, you know, because recovery, as rewarding as it is, and trying to help out others as rewarding as it is, as I said before, there's a lot of people that don't make it. There's a lot of people that are not going to ever experience recovery, and they're not even going to make it to a meeting or a recovery center or anything like that. So, you know, that's kind of one of the reasons I still go back to the treatment center, because I like to kind of sort of keep one toe in the water of where I could be still if I didn't choose this path. So it keeps me familiar with you know, active addiction. It keeps me familiar with the recovery process to the point where it keeps me going. It keeps me clean. You know, it keeps me resilient. So yes. So thank you very much for asking me to do this interview, and I hope someone who sees this gets something from it. Anyway, again, thank you very much.